broken up into several different parts, and each week has a specific theme. So for the first half, where we focused on the tools and techniques needed for innovation within startups, we broke them into 4 themes. We broke them into doing market research, running market experiments, doing product research, and doing product experiments. So for the first week, we focused on ideation and something called generative market research, which basically means what are the tools and techniques we need to take an idea, expand on it, and then to actually research potential markets that idea can be a successful business in. So specifically, we talked about things like customer discovery interviews. We talked about things like prioritizing, goal setting, ideating, and that's kind of specifically what we covered for the first week. The second week was more focused on running experiments to see if those markets, right, that we had done research on in the previous week are actually valid, right? Actually work for to see if those markets are actually valid and actually work for the ideas that we had been generating. So in that week, we touch on things like doing a different type of customer interview, doing things like pocket tests, sales pitches. We focused on doing a lot of business model canvassing, which is where we try and map out what are the different moving parts of our business model, and how does each market assumption fit into that business model canvas. But generally, that second week was more about validating or invalidating the ideas that we had come up with in the first week, using those tools and techniques that we learned about in the first week. The third week, we moved on to the product side of a startup. There we, in the third week, we focused on doing product research. So taking an idea, and before we actually build anything with that idea, how do we research the right thing that we need to build? That was the main focus of that third week. And so things that we did in that third week, we did things like paper prototyping, where we take an idea, we sketch it out on paper, and we do research on whether or not a solution is helpful to a specific market, really focusing on, again, being open-ended, trying to discover what potential solutions are there, and how can we improve on them, how can we make our own, how can we differentiate our own, before even building anything as a startup. So, and then the fourth week, to kind of close this section on tools and techniques for innovation, we focused on running product experiments. So at this stage in a startup, the trainees that we're working with should recognize that these startups are now, they have a version of their product, they have maybe several target customers, right? Now we need to go and help that startup figure out what is the best way to determine if the product we have is right and what we need to improve on it moving forward. So we do that by running experiments on the product. So that's what the fourth week is focused on. We also touched on things like B2B, so business-to-business types of startups and companies, and sales training as well.
I wanted to use this fourth week as a segue for what's going to happen in week 5 to 8 when we're talking about the macro level of innovation. So this is why we have B2B, when startups get to talk with large organizations. How are they going to sell or market their products towards these large organizations? Week 5 was mainly focused on culture and mindset. What are the culture elements that an ecosystem and a startup need to focus on, but also the mindset of the entrepreneur. How can you spot if somebody is an entrepreneur or somebody has a standard business school type of thinking and approach to new businesses and innovation? Week 6 was focused mainly on scaling. How do you take an idea that was validated, that you have a proof that works, and how do you make that into a scalable business? How do you scale the business? How do you grow it? How do you market it overseas, not only locally, domestically? Week 7 mainly focuses on enterprise because a lot of our trainees are going to work with consortiums and enterprises, also government organizations. We focus about innovation in the enterprise. What are the peculiarities of this particular branch of innovation? What are the do's and don'ts? And in general, mindset and tools for innovation in large organizations. Week 8 focuses specifically on developing the ecosystem here in Vietnam, and refers to setting up conferences, setting up meetups, involving other parts of the ecosystem, designing a map of all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, from other accelerator programs to government agencies to the government itself. Universities are a big partner in any ecosystem, so how can you engage with universities, design a curriculum for those, and anything that has to do with ecosystem mapping. So this is an overview of our entire curriculum for the 8 weeks program.